Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Zwift Racing League Round 2, Stage 5. Today we have a big points race on Keith Hill after party, and New York is currently covered in snow, so I'm going to guess that there's going to be a new surge of riders that are going to be coming into the Zwift Racing League this week. Now, if you want to stay on top of them and dominate your races, stick around and watch this whole recon because there are some tips you're not going to want to miss. Welcome back to London, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Keith Hill after party for our second points race of the season, and it's on the dreaded Keith Hill after party. Now, if you're not sure what this route is, or have never heard of the after party races, basically it ends on the top of a KOM. Now, Keith Hill is going to be a big one, and the course has a total of 435 meters of climbing. The one thing is, it's 36.7 kilometers long, and I would categorize this race as mostly flat up until the end KOM. Now there's going to be a ton of variables that go into this race for points and positioning, as well as bike choices. So you're going to want to stick around and watch this whole recon. Now reconners have been kind of left in the dark here for this second points race of round 2. Now again, I have no clue what segments and also power-ups are going to be used. Last time we were told everything was going to be the featherweight power-up, and we got random power-ups. We're going to go with that again and say that each of the 3 banners that we are going to pass are going to be completely random. Now with completely random power-ups, I'm also going to assume with only 2 segments in play on this route, we're going to be getting FAL and FTS for both segments. Now this is going to kind of change the way you go into this race. Again, in the description, I'm going to pin the comment that obviously tells me what they are when they're released. And also in the description, the top part of it is going to be the update of what I have when I find out. Now for the point segments, there's going to be 2, like I said previously. The first one is going to be a very simple sprint in London. It's kind of the classic sprint, basically all flat. It's maybe a tiny 1%, and it's only 200 meters. This is going to be fast, quick, and heavy. Now let's talk about the mountain of Keith Hill. It's a total of 4 kilometers long and an average gradient of 5%. It's going to be tough, it's going to be heavy, it's going to be hard, and there's some decent bike choices that could be made for podium bonus points and also your first across the line and fastest through the segment. Now talking about points, let's break down the point structure real quick because I tend to always forget about this part. Now for the FTS segments, there's only a potential of 5 point getters, and that's going to be the top 5 finishers fastest through those segments. And you're going to get 10 points for first, and it's going to decline by 2 by every position. So first gets 10, fifth gets 2. Now FAL points have been extended to not only 10 riders, but 20. The first across the line will get a total of 20 points and 1 point subtracted off of each and everyone's score for the next 20. So if you get 20th place, you're still getting 1 point for your team. And I did mention this a little bit before, but there is a podium bonus points for those who are on the podium and also just off the podium. The first 5 riders that finish this race will be getting 10 points for first, and fifth will get 2, just like the FTS segments. Now you guys didn't like my bike choices in the scratch race on New York City, but I'm gonna come right back at you with 3 options that you have for this race. Now the first one is going to be a safe option. If you wanna be safe, you wanna have a decent position, but you don't wanna win this race, I would go with an all-rounder, go with the Tron, go with the Pinarello Dogma. Honestly, probably the best bike of choice in my opinion, but the Tron is going to be the best all-rounder, and it's going to be aero, it's going to be lightweight. You're going to have a great time on the hills and a decent time on the flats. Now for the riskier options, I have 2 of them. The first is going to be the aero option. You're going for sprints, and then you're going to have a decent time on the KOM. This one is obviously going to be the Pinarello Dogma, paired up with your, you guessed it, DT Swiss disc wheels. These are personally my favorite. You're gonna have a great chance at that sprint for the FAL and FTS segments, but I don't think it's gonna kill you on the climb. And I'll tell you why. With most of this route being completely flat, you can basically just chill the whole race, because I think a lot of riders are going to sit back in the peloton and just wait for this climb. While you may have disc wheels and they're a tad heavier on that climb, I really don't think it's going to make that much of a difference based on the amount of energy you've saved over the race. Now moving on to my second option, another riskier option, but I think this is the clear winner in my opinion. This is going to be one for the climbers, and that's going to be to go with a extremely lightweight setup. Get yourself on a lightweight bike like the Athos S-Works or even just the Pinarello Dogma. Honestly, I think if you're not riding the Tron, you should be riding the Pinarello Dogma. It's just about those wheel choices. Now, I would pair either of these bikes up to the Alpinist if you have those wheels, the extremely lightweight wheels for going up the Zwift. The 7.8s is another great option, and even the Zip 454s will do well. This combo, I need to tell you, is going to be difficult to stick with the peloton throughout most of this race. If you can survive the sprint point, which is going to be very fast and heated based on how flat it is, if you can survive that, then you're going to have a great time going up that KOM on a lightweight option, and you have a great chance for a victory. Now, this option also gives you the chance to go for FAL points on Keith Hill. You'll also have a chance for FTS points on Keith Hill if it's a segment, and also those podium bonus points at the end. And now, finally, what you've all been here, the route overview of Keith Hill After Party. But first, a huge shout out to Not Tadej Pogačar, who is a fantastic Zwift YouTuber, and I just happened to watch his Zwift is Fun Again video because I watch all of his videos, and he was just doing this course on a race, and I was like, I'm a lazy person. I don't want to ride this for a recon. So I ended up asking him, and he was nice enough to share us the footage, so please go out and support his channel. Like I said, he's a fantastic YouTuber about cycling, Zwift, and he kind of gives you better tips than I do. He's more entertaining. I mean, honestly, if you're not subscribed to me, you should be subscribed to him. But let's get on with his ride and my recon. Now we're going to start in the London Loop Pens, a very similar start to our Box Hill ride that we had a few weeks ago, or I should say last round. Now, if you've raced London ever before, you've definitely seen a lot of these roads, a lot of these climbs, a lot of these risers, and that's basically what the beginning of this race is. It's just a bunch of risers going up and down, simple rollers, and nothing is going to catch you out. Now, it might be a little bit fast in the beginning of this race, but don't worry, it's going to slow down. Now, 4.8 kilometers into the race, you've seen this rise on London plenty of times. It's going to be a simple 4 to 5% incline, and it goes for about half a kilometer or so. So make sure you're able to just stick with the front part of the peloton. I'm sure some are going to try and push the pace here just to get a few stragglers off the back quite quickly in this race, but I wouldn't expect anything crazy here. Now I'm going to skip on over to the 13.1 kilometer mark, and that's going to be around our first segment. Now the speed of the peloton is going to get quite quick. All of these roads are completely flat, so going for an FAL point is going to be tough. You're going to want to make your break quite early, but you need to know the draft is going to be extremely difficult to lose on the riders behind you. Now, the official start of this sprint is at 14.9 kilometers into the race, so just be aware of that. And if you are going for a sprint segment, I would recommend starting your sprint a little bit beforehand. Get that speed up, get that draft, and go all in. Now for you aero bike riders, this is your mark. You need to make some points up for your team. If it's other FAL, FTS, you need to get those. Because with disc wheels, you're gonna have more trouble on that final climb. For the lightweight bike users, I'm going to honestly give you a good old thumbs up. Good luck, because it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be heavy, and you're gonna need to stick with that front group if you wanna win this race. This is going to be a key pivotal moment for your race. Now, as we speed up a little forward into this, 23.7 kilometers into the race, we come out of the tunnel with a decent 4% incline. You've seen this hill before, I hope, and honestly, it's nothing crazy, but it is just long. So just make sure you're able to stick with everyone, and don't push too hard if you don't have to. About 6 kilometers later at 29.3, you are going to be getting your final power up that you can use for Keith Hill. So I really hope you get a feather here, because if not, it's basically worthless. So if you've never ridden this climb before, I really recommend taking notes. The second you come out of the subway at 31.4 kilometers into the race, you're going to take a right onto Fox Hill. Now you're going to be doing the start of Fox Hill, but instead of turning right, you're going to take a left, and it's going to even out just a little bit. Now the first part of this hill is somewhat draftable. It's only a 5-6%er, so you can get into the draft of people, and you're gonna want to make sure you save your energy for Keith Hill. The official start of this KOM is 32.5 kilometers, and it's going to average 5% over 4 kilometers. Now, just like the reverse New York City KOM, I'm gonna break this climb into 3 different parts. The first one, average out around 7%, and it's gonna have a peak of 10%. Now, I would use some decent power here to get up and over that 10% and get into the draft when it goes down. You're gonna have a little bit of time to rest here, and you're gonna need it. Now, with about 3 kilometers left into the race, you're gonna run into the second part of this KOM. Now, most of this second part is 9 to 12%. Oof, that is going to hurt the legs, hurt your spirits, and hopefully not push you over the edge. Now, my recommendation for this part is to not overwork yourself. Find a little group you can stick with. If it's the front, if it's the back, wherever it is, stick with some riders. Motivate yourself to get up and over this part. Because if you get stranded on this hill like I did during Surrey Hills, it's not fun. Now, once you get up and over this part, you're going to have a very slim portion to get some quick rest in and move on to the last and final part of this climb. This part averages out to be 6%, and honestly, it's the easiest part of this climb. You need to get up and over the red portion, get into the orange, and get into a really good rhythm. Now, if the group ends up getting up and over the hill together, you know you're gonna have a nice sprint finish on your hands, because you have about 1 kilometer from the top of the hill to the KOM banner. I do recommend not trying to do that though. If you want a good chance at the KOM, the FTS points and the FAL points, and yourself on the podium, I would try and drop the group at 35.7 kilometers into the race. This is going to be the end of the 6% point, and you are going to drop anyone with some big power. Now, once you get to the top, don't slow down. There are some small gradients left that will slow your race down, and anyone that's coming up and over that climb and has the motivation to keep going will be able to pass you right at the end. Well, that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen, for the Keith Hill after party. Quite an interesting course to have another points race on. Honestly, only 2 segments makes it kind of boring, I guess. But, you know, it's better than having FAL 2 kilometers into the race, I guess. So, there you go. And as always, I really appreciate everyone that tunes into my recons. I really appreciate it. I love the comments. And always hit the like button and subscribe for more Zwift content. I'm trying to do a little bit more than just my recons, but I appreciate you for coming and tuning in to my recons. Now, as always, I'm going to have the whole race recon right after this, and you're going to be able to see the whole route sped up a bit. And a big shout out to Not Tade Pagacha yet again for this recon. Have a great time, and we'll see you next time for stage 6. And honestly, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. stick around and watch this whole recon because there are some tips you're not going to want to miss. What a hell of an intro. I'm goated. I'm goated. I was given the crown, and now I'm goated. All right. Whew. What an intro.